Okay, so today we basically just kind of summarize the chapter 10 and 11. You already got chapter 10 on Tuesday, right? And yesterday you learned chapter 11, the muscular system. So we're gonna just kind of review of these two chapter. I'm gonna use the PowerPoint today. Okay, are you ready? Hey, now these two chapters talk about muscle, right? Muscle as a tissue, muscle as an organ, and also muscular system. The system that consists of about 600 to 700 muscle organs. Now, muscle. Again, there are three types of muscle: cardiac, skeletal, and smooth. Right? You already have this one. You already see the differences between these three type of muscle. Right? Like skeletal muscle attached to the skeleton, it is voluntary. It is a long fiber, right? Cylindrical muscle. It has stripes, right? And the cardiac muscle also cylindrical, but it is branching, only one nucleus per cell. It also has stripe. It is involuntary. Smooth muscle, this is the smooth, no stripes, shortest muscle, only one nucleus per cell, located in the wall of hollow organs and some places like in the skin and in the eyes. What? And this is involuntary muscle. Wow. And now, again, there are about 600 to 700 skeletal muscles, and all of them attached to the skeleton. Therefore, this is the one that actually part of the muscular system. When we talk about muscular system, it is only consists of skeletal muscle. Does not include the cardiac or smooth muscle. And muscle as an organ, of course, consists of the tissue. It has skeletal muscle tissue. And we know skeletal muscle tissue is a long muscle, right? Stripe, voluntary, many nucleus per cell. And then it also has nervous tissue, especially the motor neurons will go to your muscle in order to give the order to the muscle to contract. Remember, muscle is one of our effectors. It will contract, or it will do the action based on the order that coming from our brain, our control system. It has also bloods that enter into our muscle and some other connective tissues. Now, connective tissue of muscle, there are fascia, which is thin covering of connective tissue around the muscle. This is kind of a membranes. And then the tendon, we know the tendon, which is the fibrous connective tissue that connect the muscle to the bone. It consists actually of the dense regular connective tissue. And then it is also have aponeurosis. This is look like a tendon, but it's thinner. Thinner. Usually we have a lot in our head, our skull. There is an aponeuron instead of tendons over there. There is epimysium, perimysium, endomysium. This is the layer of each bundle of muscle, or maybe fascicle, or the myofibers. We're gonna see that location of that. Oh. Okay, look at over here. I think I already tried to draw this last time. What? This one is better. You can see this one is better. So this is the whole muscle as an organ over here. This is organs of muscle, which is, let's say, in part of our body. So these muscles is also known as fascia, muscle fascia or muscle organ. This is the whole organ that consists of many what? Many fascicle. So this one over here, this group over here is called the fascicle. Fascicle, fascicle, fascicle. Okay? This muscle as an organ itself, it has a membrane that cover it. That membrane is called the epimysium. So epimysium is the one that protect or cover the whole muscle as an organ. And then inside that muscle and organ, there are a group of fascicle. If we take one of them, of this one fascicle, then there is also have a membrane that cover that fascicle. That membrane is called the perimysium. There's another membrane that cover it. So if we take one, this fascicle over here, it actually consists of many what? Many muscle cell itself. This is what we call the one muscle cell or myocyte or myofibers. That's the same name. And then in each of these myofiber or myocyte, it has also coverage, the membrane. That membrane is called the endomysium. So epi, peri, endo. That's the three membranes that cover this muscle. And then if we take one of this myocyte, this muscle cell, it is actually consists of many myofibrils. So this is one myofibril, one myofibril, one myofibril. You get this one? And each myofibril, it has dot over here. That dot is actually this, the myofilaments. Get it? So basically, muscle actually consists of fiber. Bigger fiber, smaller fiber, until the smallest one is called the filament, myofilaments. And we learned that there are two types of myofilaments that do contraction, which is the thick one is called the, what is the thick myofilament called? Myosin, right? And the thin one is called actin. So thin, actin. Thick one, myosin. So this the structure of muscle. Now look at this one muscle over here. It has the membrane is called the sarcolemma, right? And then the inside is called the sarcoplasma or sarcoplasm. Inside there will be SR, sarcoplasmic reticulum. They also have nucleus. There are a lot of mitochondria in it. There are myoglobin. There are glycogens on the muscle cell. Okay, this is one. Oops, sorry. Okay. Again, this is one muscle fiber or one muscle cell. It is multinucleated, a lot of nucleus. It has sarcolemma as a membrane, sarcoplasm as the cytoplasm of the cell, many myofibrils, the thin one is called actin. The thick one is called the myosin. You have learned that. And then it also has the SR, sarcoplasmic reticulum. What's the function of the SR? Anybody still remember? What is the function? Storage for the calcium. What is the storage of calcium? There is a T-tubule also. This is the channel that bring the sodium into the SR. Remember the process last time. We also have this process later. Okay, this is how it looks like. One muscle cell or myocyte or myofibers. That's the same name again. It has sarcolemma as a membrane. It has sarcoplasm as the contents, right? It has nucleus. Basically, it has many nucleus actually. A lot of mitochondria because we need a lot of ATP for muscle contraction, right? T-tubule, this is the T-tubule. This is the SR. So T-tubule usually always connected with the SR because T-tubule carry the sodium to the SR, right? And this is the filament. This is the filament, right? The microfilament. The thick one in the middle over here. Still remember what is the name? Myosin. The thin one over here is the actin. Okay. So one of this from this Z to the other Z is called the sarcomere. Sarcomere. What is sarcomere? Sarcomere is actually the contraction unit of the muscle cell. So the one that contract is actually sarcomere. When the million of sarcomere contracted, then what happened? The whole muscle cell will be contracted. Again, the unit of contraction in muscle cell is called the sarcomere. So which is one of this. Right? We're gonna see the next one. Again, this is the name of the unit of contraction in the muscle cell is called the sarcomeres. Sarcomeres. And sarcomeres consists of this structure. I band, A band, H zone, Z disc or Z line, M line. We're gonna see that picture over here. Right? So this is Z line or Z disc, the border between one sarcomere to the other sarcomere. Inside that you have the thick filament, myosin. That thick filament actually attached or anchor into this protein. It's called the myomycin. That's located in the M line. This is M line over here. M line. And then you have this is M line in the middle. And you have the A band. Right? A band is the thick or the darker band. And the I band is the thinner, always here to here. So the thinner, the lighter band, called the I band. And then the H zone is basically the zone of contraction. When the two filaments over here, the actins slide one another. Okay, now, okay, this is actually under the electron microscope. This is from muscle cell under the electron microscope. So what you see actually just the band, the stripe, right? This is dark band, which is A band. This is the light band, which is the I band. So this is the under the electron microscope. You can see the dark band and the light band. So the A band and the I band. Right? And again, the A band is based on the thick filament. The I band is based on the thin filament. Okay. The thick filament again consists of protein. It's called the myosin, and that myosin has head at the end. Yeah, it has head. Right? The thin filament consists of actin protein, and that actin protein is like beads. You know beads, like if you have necklace, it's just kind of necklace, consists of beads. Right? So this the actin over here, which is the bead type of protein. Okay, and then in the actin there are also regulator proteins called the troponin and tropomyosin. So there are combinations of troponin and tropomyosin that's actually located in the actin site. How it look like? Look at this, right? So this is the myosin, thick filament, right? It's a fiber. And then on the myosin, it has head. This is what we call the myosin head. You get this one? So that's on the myosin side. It has a fiber, it has head. It's called the myosin head. On the actin side, this one over here, you see that actin is actually bead type of protein. A lot of beads bind together to make an actin. That's actin, which is the thin filament. Right? On the actin, it has another bead over here. There are 3 beads over here. That 3 beads protein is called as a troponin. Troponin. And this troponin has calcium binding site. It means that it will bind the calcium. The calcium that is released by the SR will be bind to this troponin. There is another protein which is look like a fiber over here. That protein is called the tropomyosin. That tropomyosin actually cover or block the dot over here. What is the dot? The dot is actually myosin head binding site. So the head will have a special place for attachment. It's called the myosin head binding site. That's located in the actin. Okay, so that's the structure of the sarcomere, especially the 2 filament over here, myosin and the actin. This is the one that actually will slide one another. Therefore, The contraction is also known as the sliding filament theory, action. Is the slide one another. Okay. Contraction, how the contraction started. Again, last time, I draw over there that in order to contract, we need order. Like right now, I'm contracting my bicep. Actually, my brain ordered it. Right? So there's order coming from our control system, which is the brain. The brain will send what? The motor neurons. The motor neurons to the muscle. Get it? And that will create what we call the NMJ. What is NMJ? Neuromuscular junction. There's a junction between neuron and muscle. Okay, that's what we call the connection between the brain, which is the motor neuron, with the muscle. It is a type of chemical synapse. Its chemical will be released on that place. Okay, and the one again, the one that go to our muscle is actually motor neurons. It's not sensory neuron, but motor neuron. Motor neuron is the neuron that give order. The give order. And it will go to the muscle and creating this. Creating the cleft. It's called the synaptic cleft, which is space between the motor neurons and the muscle cell. Okay. That motor neuron, at the end of the motor neuron, it's carry vesicle, carry the vesicle that has neurotransmitters in it. Okay? And for muscle contractions, the neurotransmitter is very special. It's called the acetylcholine. So this is the end of the motor neuron. As you see over here, this is the motor neuron. This is the end of the motor neuron. What? It is the muscle cell. It is the area is called the synaptic cleft. Okay, you got this one? If you see on the end of the motor neuron, it has a lot of vesicle. Vesicle is small organelle that carry something. That vesicle carry the what we call the neurotransmitter. Special again, special for the muscle cell. The neurotransmitter is called the acetylcholine. This is the one that order contraction. Make sure you memorize this one. Acetylcholine, order contraction for the muscle cell. What? This will be released into the synaptic cleft. Right? And then on this sarcolemma of the muscle cell, there is gated sodium channel that has receptor for the acetylcholine. It will receive the acetylcholine, open the gate, sodium will be enter into this sarcolemma, and then goes to the T-tubule and carried into the SR. Okay, that's the process for starting the contraction. Okay, again, the name of the neurotransmitter called the acetylcholine. It has the sodium channel on the sarcolemma, carry that sodium into the SR. The SR, then what happened? It will release the calcium from it because of the sodium. Where the calcium go, of course, will go to this site, which is the troponin, because troponin has the calcium binding site. Whenever calcium binding to this troponin, it will open this. It will open the myosin head binding site, right? So it's carry here, calcium enter. It will open this binding site because of this calcium. Now, the head basically already have the ATP attached on it. It's already ready actually. So our myosin head is ready to perform action. We already have ATP in our cell, right? Which is made by the mitochondria. This ATP attached to this myosin head. Okay, whenever this binding site is open, what happens? It will attach right away. Boom. Creating something what we call the bridge. Okay, so it's creating the bridge between the myosin head and this binding site over here. It's called the cross bridge. Okay, that's the cycle. So again, whenever you have the order coming from the brain through the motor neuron, release the acetylcholine. Okay, open the sodium channel, sodium enter into the muscle cell, go to the sarcoplasmic reticulum, sarcoplasmic reticulum release the calcium, calcium bind to the troponin, open the binding site. When it is open, then the head will create the cross bridge right away. Boom, like that. Right? So it's creating this, hold it this, right? Like this. And what happened? Because we already have ATP, okay, one phosphorus will be released, creating ADP. So that's actually when this head will, boom, pull the actin into the middle. That process is called the power stroke. What is the process of pulling the actin? It's called the power stroke. Boom, over here. Okay? So you have contraction. If million of sarcomeres doing this at the same time, what happened? The whole muscle will be, boom, contract. You with me? Now, if you don't have any more ATP, like for example, if you die, that's an example. If you die, your muscle may be still in this power stroke condition, like that, and you die. Boom. Okay? You die. Okay? Now, what happened with your muscle at that time when we die during that condition? Anybody know? Anybody know what's the name of this condition when somebody die, but their muscle is still contracting like this? Rigor mortis. Have you ever heard that one? Rigor mortis. This is what happened when the power stroke is happening, but you die right away. Okay? So this is called the rigor mortis. Example is, this is Halloween time, right? You see the in the movie, the zombie, what? He died like this. Right? He gonna just like this. Don't worry, the zombie cannot do anything because he actually stuck over here. What? If it is a real zombie, it's a real zombie, they will not bite you, believe me, because they cannot do anything. They're stuck in rigor mortis. Like, okay? Okay, this is science. Okay, this is science. So the movie that you watch is not. It's just makeup movie. Don't no zombie anyway. Okay, don't worry, don't zombie, no zombie. It's illogical. Okay. Okay, this is what happened if you die in this condition. Again, it's called rigor mortis. You with me? Now, how to detach this? How to make our muscle relax again? You need another ATP in order to detach this one. Therefore, another ATP will come, boom, attach on it. When it is attaching the ATP, it will release, it will detach from the binding site. Then your muscle will be relaxed again. And it's coming again, contract, relax, and etc. Okay? Can you follow this contraction? This is what happened, okay, during contraction. What you need? Of course, you need order from the brain through the motor neuron, releasing acetylcholine. You need sodium. What? Sodium enter to the muscle cell, and then go to the SR. Then you need calcium. What? Calcium from the RR will bind to the troponin, open the binding site, and the head will attach to the binding site. In this case, you need ATP. What? You need ATP. Boom. And then power stroke. And then you need another ATP to release it. So list that requirement over there. You need the order. You need the acetylcholine. You need the sodium. You need the calcium. What? You need the ATP in order to perform the whole process over here. Right? Okay. Anybody have questions so far? This is logical, right? This makes sense. If you follow this again, if you study it again at home, you should be able to memorize this process easily. Get it? You should be able to process this process easily. Okay, we continue. Okay. So this is excitation, contraction, coupling. I mentioned before, contraction, and then after contraction, there should be release, which is the relaxation. Right? Again, during relaxation, the calcium will be stored in the SR. Right? Therefore, the binding site will be covered by the tropomyosin. No contraction. In order to have contractions again, we need impulses, which is order coming from the brain. And then you know the process. I will not review again. You know the process. Again, please study at home, or you can also try to give a lecture to your friends. Right? If you give a lecture to your friend, you will remember that process. Because this will be a lot in our exam number 4, right? The process of this contraction, relaxation, what you needed for this contraction and also relaxation. Okay. Again, the theory of contraction is called the sliding filament theory or model, because what? It is considered that the filament will be slide one another, especially actin over the myosin. So slide. And this is, again, coming from the electron microscope. This one during relaxation. You see this one, Z, over here. The distance is farther away. What? This is a little bit contraction. It's closer. What? It's become closer. And it is fully contracted muscle, which is very close. Okay? The Z line is really close. So basically, contraction means shortening the muscle, because the sarcomere is shorter. So when you contract your muscle, basically your muscle is become shorter. That's the meaning of contraction. And usually this contraction, this shortening of muscle will give you the energy. Okay, will give you the energy to do something. Okay. Again, this is the same process that we mentioned before. This is the stages or the step. Okay, again, you need the calcium, the ATP already on the head. Whenever the binding site ready, it will attach, making the cross bridge, and then we'll do the power stroke and need another ATP to release it, to detach that binding site. Okay, now, in order to be relaxed again, the order has to be stopped, right? You want to relax from contraction, your brain to stop the order, right? Now, right now, my brain stop ordering my bicep over here. When it is stop ordering the bicep, what happened? The acetylcholine will not be released. Acetylcholine will stay in the motor neuron. Are you with me? But there are still some acetylcholine, right, on the synaptic cleft. It has to be removed also. Otherwise, you still make contraction. Are you with me? There are a lot of acetylcholine that still be available on the synaptic cleft. It has to be removed. How to remove it? We will produce the enzyme. The enzyme is called the acetylcholine esterase. This enzyme will remove the extra acetylcholine on the synaptic cleft. Therefore, no more acetylcholine. It means that sodium channel will close. No sodium enter into the muscle cell. The sarcoplasmic will be closed. Calcium will be stored in the SR. No contraction. So this is during relaxation. Okay. Now, the ATP that we have 3 sources of ATP for muscle contraction. The first one, we have ATP reserve. We actually have extra ATP in our muscle in order to do fast contraction. And this ATP will be, when we do contraction right away, it will be gone within 10 seconds. Boom! Even though maybe we have million ATP at that time, but when we do action, 10 seconds is gone. It means that it has to be provided from the other source. What is the next source? Here, we have molecules in our muscle is called the creatine phosphate. This creatine phosphate then will be releasing the ATP for the next contraction. And this one also will be gone within maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It's gone. But maybe it is enough for people that do sprinter, right? Like 100-meter sprint, they usually take about how many seconds? It's very fast, right? That may be enough for them, right, to use ATP reserve and also the ATP from creatine phosphate. Can you follow this, right? Some people, some athletes actually use the bypass. Maybe some of you also. You can buy this creatine phosphate, right? You can buy in Walmart or you can order from Amazon, right? Creatine phosphate. What it is used for? It's actually giving you extra ATP right away, right? Immediate ATP. Are you with me? But it is again, it will be gone fast. If you don't do anything, for example, I don't want to say you lazy. If you are not really active, you don't need the creatine phosphate. What is that for? What? If your life is just slowly going, right? If you are not an athlete, for example, you are not doing exercise a lot, you don't need creatine phosphate. Don't use it. Eh? Don't buy the creatine phosphate. Eh? But maybe if you are so active, you need extra ATP, you might need creatine phosphate. But I specifically do not kind of, give you suggestion for that one. It is better to have whatever we have in our own body. Do not put something from outside. It might causing problem to your system. Okay. Now, again, we have creatine phosphate in our muscle that is ready for short-term contraction or activity. Now, what happens if you do long-term activity? Like, for example, you are long marathons, for example, what? You need a lot of ATP. Then you have the last source of ATP, which is coming from cellular respiration. And cellular respiration is done by mitochondria. We need oxygen, we need glucose for this. And this will give you the long-term ATP for long-term activities. Okay, you can follow this one. So we have three sources of ATP in our cell, in our muscle cell. Reserve ATP, creatine phosphate, and of course, through the cellular respiration. Okay. Again, this is how the creatine phosphate will be used whenever we need it. It will be changed into ATP, and the waste will be creatine. People that use a lot of creatine phosphate, their urine will have a lot of creatine in it. So actually, doctor or maybe the athletic committee will be able to tell whether you use creatine phosphate or not, because your urine will have a lot of these creatines. Right? They can do the test. Okay, they can screen your urine whether you're using creatine phosphate or not. Sometimes in some sport, maybe creatine phosphate is illegal. It's not to be used. This is cellular respiration, which is, again, you need oxygen and glucose, and the process will be in the cytoplasm, and the last process will be in this mitochondria. Okay, you will get a lot of ATP from this process. Now, what happens again if, for example, you do long-term exercise, long-term activity, and that time you will be gasping, the oxygen actually will be very few that enter into your body. Basically, it will be used by the cardiac muscle and your brain. The skeletal muscle will not receive this one. It's called the oxygen debt. You don't get the oxygen. Then what happened? We still need ATP because of our action, for example. Then we still be able, our muscle still be able to perform or produce ATP using what we call the fermentation. It's called the lactic acid fermentation. But this fermentation will produce lactic acid, which is kind of toxic to our body and causing our muscle to be fatigued. So basically, our muscle will stop contraction whenever we perform the fermentations and too much lactic acids being built up in our tissue. Okay. I think we're gonna pass this one. Muscle cell also produce heat. When we do exercise, our body temperature increases, right? So this is why, because muscle actually also produce heat. This is just some clinical condition with the muscle disorder like myasthenia gravis. This is autoimmune disorder. Antibodies will attack the acetylcholine receptor. What happened if the receptor attack? Then acetylcholine will not bind to the sodium receptor on the muscle cell. And what happened? Sodium will not enter to our muscle cell. And what happened? No calcium released from sarcoplasmic. And what happened? No contraction. Basically, these people will have a very weak contraction, okay? Because they have problem with the acetylcholine receptor. Okay? This is another disorder like muscular dystrophy. This is because of deficiency of one proteins. So in the sarcomere, there are several types of proteins. The first protein is called the contracted proteins. This is the one that contract, like actin and myosin. There is a regulator protein. This is the one that regulates the process, which is troponin and tropomyosin. Right? And there is a structural protein. There is nebulin, dystrophin. One of them is dystrophin over here. So this person actually have deficiency on dystrophin. Their muscle actually going to be very weak. Okay? The same with other conditions. Clostridium botulinum. This is actually name of bacteria that produce the toxin is called Botox. Have you ever heard Botox? What? It's produced Botox. What is Botox used for? Paralyzing the muscle. Let's say in your face like this, when the muscle, your face is wrinkled over here, it's actually your muscle contracted. How to smooth it? Make it paralyzed, which is using the Botox. So doctor will inject in the Botox over here, I don't know. I never get the Botox anyway. So it will paralyze the muscle. It will make the face smooth. But it is not forever. You have to get injection again. And the problem is, if this Botox go to your diaphragm, which is the muscle that control your breathing, what happened? Your diaphragm will be stopped contraction, paralyzed. What happened? You die. That's it. Okay? So some people might get the toxin from the food, and then it will basically can kill them if this Botox enter into the respiratory muscle like diaphragm. Okay. Now this muscle contraction, remember, when it is contracts, one contraction is called twitch. So sometimes you have twitch on your eyes, right? Twitch. But that twitch is nothing. Right? It doesn't give you anything. It's just twitch. Okay? Just one contraction, it is nothing actually. Right? In order to give strong contraction, you have to have a lot of twitch together that coming together and overlap one another. That one is called the summation. So this is just one twitch. It has latent period, contraction period, and relaxation period. And in order to give strong contraction, meaningful contraction, you have to have a lot of twitch that come one another in a very fast. Therefore, you're going to have strong contraction over here. That strong contraction actually built by many twitch that come together. Right? So this is what we call the summation. Okay? Summation means additional twitch, a lot of twitch that come together to give meaningful and strong contraction. Now, another thing is motor units. Motor units mean one motor neuron that innervate several muscle cells. Get it? So there are some motor unit that innervate many muscle cells, just one motor unit maybe innervate 1,000 of them. Like for example, in our back over here, our back, the contraction is, it's just smooth contraction, it's long contraction. Therefore, it doesn't need a lot of motor unit. But look at here. We can do a lot of different contraction over here. Why? Because there are many motor units that actually go to our muscle on the hand. Because one motor unit will tell you contract this, the other motor unit tell you another muscle to contract this, and etc. But a back over here, you don't really do a lot of things, right? Therefore, on the back, you usually only have about one motor unit that can innervate 1,000 of muscle cell at the same time. But over here, one motor unit maybe only innervate about 20 muscle. Okay, basically we have a lot of motor unit that go to the area that need a lot of different contraction. That's the motor unit mean. This is just a picture. You see the blue motor unit will go to the blue muscle over here. The red motor unit will go to the red muscle. Like over here, maybe there are blue motor unit, red motor unit, yellow motor unit, etc. If we based on color. And then it will give different muscle contraction. Okay? Okay, type of contraction, there are two types, isotonic and isometric. What is isotonic mean? This is contractions while you move the load. The load or your skeleton is actually moving. Isometric, you have contraction, but the load is stay. Like for example, if you try to take a very heavy thing, right? You cannot move it. It stay there. But your muscle is contracted, still contracted, right? But you don't move it. That's what we call the isometric. Are you with me? So isotonic means you're able to move it, whether contracted or extended. That's isotonic. Isometric means your muscle contract but no movement. Right? That's the isometric contraction. This is example over here. Both of this is isotonic. If this one is called the concentric, you move, your muscle become shorter. Concentric isotonic contraction. Your muscle become longer, which is extends. This one is called the eccentric isotonic contraction. This one is the isometric, no movement. So your muscles contract, but there is no movement. That's called the isometric contraction. Okay, type of muscle fiber. Sometimes you say don't eat red meat. What? Eat white meat. What is that actually? That's actually different type of fiber based on whether you have a lot of myoglobin or not. If the muscle have a lot of myoglobins, there's going to be red in color. Why? Because myoglobin carry oxygen. Oxygen is actually the one that give red color in our blood, in our muscle over here. Okay? Abundance of myoglobin. Usually this one is going to be resistant to fatigue. They can do action but slower. Example is beef. Beef is a red or white? Red meat, right? Example is cow. So cow basically has more red meat. Because what? They do slow action, but they are resistant to fatigue. They are very strong. They can do action for a long period of time, right? That's the cow. The second one is called the type 2 over here. It is white fibers. It still have many myoglobin, but also have a lot of muscle that do not have myoglobins. It's kind of pink color, right? The last one over here is called the fast twitch fiber. This is the white one, the real white muscle or fiber. Okay, chicken, for example. Do chicken white meat or red meat? Chicken? White. Now, if you compare between chicken and cow, which one actually very active? Do a lot of action, but suddenly they just fatigue. They just stop. Chicken, what? Chicken. And then I'm tired. Why? Because chicken has a lot of white meat. How about cow? Cow is very slow, but it's very strong. Well, therefore, you can use cow to till your soil, for example, for a long period of time. Why? Because they have a lot of red meat. The same thing in human, we over here, if you are so active, mostly you will have a lot of white fibers on your meat, on your muscle. But if you are not active, you might have more myoglobin or the red fibers. Okay, so that's the different type of muscle. Some other clinical application like hypertrophy, this is the muscle become so big, atrophy becomes so small. So just for information, everybody actually have the same number of muscle, no different. Whether you are bodybuilder or just baby, you have the same number of muscle. What it make it different? The size. The size make different, right? The bodybuilder have more proteins on their muscle, therefore bigger. Sometimes they have hypertrophy, their muscle too big. What? Some people that do not use their muscle, they're gonna lose a lot of proteins, their muscle become smaller. That's what we call the atrophy. Okay. Okay. We're done with the skeletal muscle. Now we smooth muscle. This is the shortest muscle. This is again spindle type of muscle. There are two types of smooth muscle, multi-unit and visceral unit or smooth muscle. This is the one that's located in the walls of the hollow organs. And this is the one that's located in other part of our body, like in the skin, we have arrector villi, we have iris in our eyes, right? That's a smooth muscle. Okay, the contraction. Okay, this is actually if the skeletal muscle is doing like this, shorter, long becomes shorter. Right? The smooth muscle is like a twist. If you twist a rubber, it's twisted like this. That's when it is contracted. It's not shorter, but it's become shorter, but by twisting it. That's how the smooth muscle contracted. The cardiac muscle, this is branches muscle that located in the wall of our heart. They also have stripe. It's very similar with the skeletal muscle. The difference is they have more mitochondria because they never stop contraction. Right? They need a lot of ATP. Now, body movement. This is example of what we call the lever system in our body. We have first class lever, second class lever, and third class lever. The first class lever over here is force, and then fulcrum, and the load. This is just like in our head over here. What? We have the fulcrum in the middle, and we have the load over here, what? Which is our face is actually heavy. It's a load. And we have muscle on the back over here. So this is example of the first class lever. When our muscle contracted, it will move the load, through the fulcrum over here. Okay. The second one, this is like here we have the fulcrum in the front, and then we have the load in the middle, and then we have the contraction on the back. So when we do like this, fulcrum, fulcrum, load, and then the muscles here on the back. Okay, and then the middle one, the muscle is actually in the middle, the muscle here, and then you have the load and the fulcrum at the end. So this is example of some lever system in our muscle. And we already mentioned this, origin and insertions. Origin is attached to the immovable bone. The insertion is the one that attached to the movable bone. So the tendon, this is called the origin, this is called the insertion. This one is bicep. Again, the name is based on the origin. There are two origin of tendons for the bicep. That's the name is coming from. Now, this is the one that we have yesterday. So type of skeletal muscle in our muscular system. There are agonist, prime mover is actually the same, synergistic and antagonistic type of muscle. This is the whole muscles in our body in the front part. Again, we have frontalis, orbicularis oculi, orbiculis oris, pec muscle, ab muscle. Right? We have quadriceps femoris, tibialis anterior. This is on the back. We have the diamond-shaped muscles, the trapezium. This is latissimus dorsi. This is the butt muscle, gluteus maximus. This is the one that we learned also yesterday in our face. We have frontalis, temporalis. This is masseter. This is the zygomaticus. What? This is the buccinator. This is the one used for what? This is orbicularis oris, orbicularis oculi. This is platissima. What? This is sternocleidomastoid muscle. This is the trapezius muscle, the one that look like a diamonds on the back. Again, this is muscle that move our shoulder, our hand. Yeah, we have trapezius, latissimus dorsi, deltoid. This is from the back. If you see from the front, we have pectoralis major, of course, also deltoid over here. And this is ab muscle. Ab muscle has 4 muscles, right? The external oblique muscle. Under it, there is internal oblique muscle. And then the last one, the last layer called the transversus abdominis. The middle one over here, the one that gives the six-pack appearance is called the rectus abdominis. That's 4 muscle of the abs. This is the ab muscle. Okay, so this, okay, again, this is the one that moved them. You have deltoid, you have scapula muscle, you have bicep, brachialis over here. This is the muscles on the supine area. And as mentioned before, supine is meant that you can pronate, so it's going to be pronator, and you can flex, so it's going to be pronator and flexor muscle over here, right, on the supine part. On the back part, on the front part, then you have the supinator and the extensor of DGT. This is the ab muscle again. There are 4 of them, external, internal, transversus, and rectus abdominis in the middle. This is the pelvic muscle, male and female. So male is actually only have 1 opening over here, an anus, and then the other opening is in the urethra over there. So the sperm and urine actually combine in male, right? Only have 2 opening. But the female, it has 3 opening, anus, and then the vagina and the urethra. So basically, baby will not mix with the urine in human. That's it. But in mouse, for example, the urine and the vagina opening is actually combined. So urine and the baby is combined on the mouse, but in human is separated, right? So this is just different type of muscle in this area. We have, like for example, this is gluteus medius, maximus, levator ani. This is the one that lift our anus. This is external orifice of the anus, anal, okay? There will be external orifice for the urethra over here, just like over here. And then this is the external muscle for the anus. This is muscle of the thigh. Okay, you have front, back on the inside part. Now, is over here again. On the, this is the back. You have the hamstring that consists of bicep femoris, semitendinous. There is also semimembranous, smaller over here. And this is we cut the thigh in the middle. Okay, we cut this one cross section. You will have 3 compartments. This biggest compartment is on the front and lateral part. Is quadriceps femoris. Okay, consists of the rectus femoris, and then intermedius vastus lateralis. This is site for injection, and there's vastus medialis. The back part we have the hamstring, bicep femoris, semitendinous and semimembranous. The middle part we have the adductor muscle, adductor magnus, and then longus and gracilis. That's the compartment of the thigh muscle. Muscle of the leg, the front part, we have the biggest ones will be this one, tibialis anterior. If you see on the back, the one that may be important over here is the gastrocnemius muscle. It looks like a gaster or belly muscle. So it looks like belly over here. That's gastrocnemius muscle. The inter or intramuscular injection. There are 3 sites in our body. Most people use deltoid. They can also use the vastus lateralis of the quadriceps femoris muscle or gluteus medius of the glute muscle. Where it is located? Here. So this is deltoid. And then this is maximus. This is medius. This is the one that for injection. Don't do here. Why? You have a very important nerve over here. If you go and inject this one, it might causing your legs to be paralyzed. This is called the sciatic nerve. It's really important. So therefore, never inject your butt, big butt. Use the medium butt. And for the quadriceps femoris, the site over here, which is the lateralis that's used for injection. This is the 3 site for injections, especially when we put like maybe antibiotics or drugs into our body. All right, we're done. So we finished. I hope it will help you. It will not making you more confusing, but study. So we will review this 3 chapters.